Hi, welcome to Living Ultra with Harvey and Kelly. I'm Kelly.
I'm Harvey. We're excited to talk about the Barkley Marathon.
So when we first started our YouTube channel, that was one of the first things that we did. Remember, we did like a 2-part series on like Barkley marathons without giving too much away, right?
Right.
So now this is your third time
Running
attempting
and DNFing in the Barkley Marathons.
So we're just going to kind of talk about some things that he did this year that maybe he'll do again or he won't do again, and some of the different differences between like year 1, year 2, and year 3. So
Absolutely.
Ready? Okay, so let's get started. So the number one question that a lot of people have asked is, how has your training differed from year to year? Obviously, it hasn't worked.
Yeah, right.
So what are you doing?
Yeah.
That you want to change in the future?
Yeah. So even though my training has not helped me to finish the race, there are some elements that I have improved in and areas that I still need to improve in. So some of the things that improved with this year's Barkley had to do with gear. And in the first 2 years, I used a bladder for my backpack. And so I was carrying like 1.5, maybe slightly more than that, maybe even like 2 liters of liquids with me at all times. And then we had 2 water stations where there were just gallon jugs left out at 1/3 of the way through the course. And so I was carrying a lot more weight than I needed to in the first 2 races. And it made such an improvement to carry just a Katagdan like bottle that had a filter automatically with it. And at the bottom of every mountain, there's basically like 7.5 major climbs. There's usually a water source.
So you went lighter this year.
I was lighter,
with your gear.
And that really makes a difference because everything is a matter of like inches and pounds and like how much energy you use. So the first year I did Barkley, I finished my first loop in 8 hours and 37 minutes and some change. Last year I finished my first loop in right around like 10 hours. I was trying to pace myself a little easier. And this year I did it in like 8 hours and I think it was like 45 minutes or 48 minutes, somewhere around there.
Right.
So maybe it was 49 minutes, but it really, from the first mountain climb, like I could tell a difference with my pack being a little lighter. And then the other thing is, this year was a warmer year than the last 2 years. So this year, I like really only took what I knew I needed, and I did some more cold weather training. So like when I started the race, I was probably one of the 4 or 5 runners which was dressed in the least amount of clothing at the very start of the race. But the thing is, as soon as you go 200 meters, you're heading straight up, steep areas. And like when you're climbing up the mountain, like within a matter of 5 minutes of leaving the start line, you're like profusely sweating. So you use a lot less energy and you're way more efficient to run with like less clothing than, I saw runners with like full hooded face masks and like bigger, heavier like gear on. And I was like feeling bad for them because I could just see that they're like feeling that like.
So this is a good question then, leading into what you just said. A lot of people, when you're at Frozen Head State Park, when you're looking at up into the mountains, it's kind of like, oh, this is like really cool. And it doesn't, like, what the people that are there at Frozen Head or people that are just following the race in general, what can they not see about the Barkley Marathon course that the runners get to see?
Yeah, so there's been such great documentaries to come out of this race, and they have done a really amazing job. But what people don't see is the true like challenges of the steepness of the terrain. So I mean, like the first climb in the first descent, it's really hard to no one's ever seen that on film that I'm aware of, and it looks a bit like some wildebeest migration. I mean, it looks a little chaotic. Like there's just a lot of like speed and like it seems like, oh, crazy. Like, I mean, you're running and falling, running, getting back up. So it's really has like very challenging technical terrain. I know everyone says that, but like when you're like seeing the photographs and the video from the top of like Frozen Head State Park tower at the top of Ratjaw, that's the crest. That's like the most easy part of Ratjaw. So like, and Ratjaw is relatively easy in terms of like the technical nature of it, with the exception of like a few really steep sections where you have to like literally hold on to a down power line to pull yourself up for like literally like 30 meters at a time in some places. But there's not really, people don't see you're climbing Mount Everest twice from sea level. That's a lot of climbing, and there's very few places that are literally flat. Like maybe twice in that course for a mile, there's a flat spot. That's it. The whole rest of the time, you're either going nearly straight up or nearly straight down.
So would you?
And so it's a different. It's even more intense than people actually see.
So would you agree that like a big piece of training for Barkley has got to be on like mountainous terrain?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's not impossible. Like, now this is getting to the second half of that first question. So what went well? What could improve? So, I mean, it really is like such a benefit to be training in mountains. Like, I mean, coming from Ohio and being so-called like a flatlander, it does have an added weight of challenge, because like I could go out for 6 hours or 7 hours, 8 hours, and go up and down Ohio's biggest hills in our region, which are like 350 feet. But the mountains you climb in Barkley are like 1,500 to 2,000 feet of climbing. And so it's not the same, quite a simulation. So, I mean, if you look at the 20 runners who have finished Barkley, I'm not sure how many of them haven't come from a mountainous area or have had extensive training year round or close to that on mountains. So, I mean, to the one area I feel like one of the big areas I would be missing is I like to run a lot of diversity of races. So, I mean, I run races that are stage races. I run races that are like bad water. I run Big's Backyard. I do all different types of races. I do some mountainous races as well, like the Canadian Death Race this year. But I feel like to have the highest level of success in Barkley is to concentrate on mountain races year round. On the same hand, what I did feel stronger on the mountains this year, and one of the things I did incorporate was just a stair climber. Like, I hadn't done that at all the previous 2 years. And like the stair climber, I like trained up to like an hour with it. And if I was honestly to do it again, I'll probably incorporate longer durations or like more times throughout the day. It would just be longer than an hour. But that did increase my muscle strength. And the other thing I was thinking about when I was running the race this year is, since I don't have steep, 1,500 to 2,000 feet descents, I think even like doing like squats with like weights is really advantageous. Like if you don't have that environment to train with, like the amount of poundage you put on your body and pressure on your like legs during those steep descents, it really taxes your running economy.
So a lot of people also wonder, and I wonder, are you going to go back?
Well, the Barkley is only 40 runners, and there's a wait list about that deep. So I would be open to going back. Like if you would ask me when I was finishing that last loop, I would have like had a resounding probably no. But my mind has focused on the positives. There were a lot of really exciting aspects of the race. So I mean, there were 5 finishers, and Jasmine. I mean, it was really incredible to like experience that. So that was a huge high, but also the like there were other like really cool things about the race. So I mean, actually, even finding the books, even though I only made it through a loop and a half again, like finding the books is kind of like a treasure hunt. So that's really cool, and the race pushes your mind in ways that I feel like no other race quite does. Because you really have to be so focused on absolute like minute details. For example, when I'm going around and I ended up messing up a book in terms of like navigating counterclockwise, but I had memorized like a small piece of plastic, and I knew at that point that I needed to turn up a mountain, and my mistake was not memorizing exactly how far from that piece of plastic to turn up the mountain. But the race really pushes your mind, and I love that aspect to it.
Okay, awesome.
And what do you think is the number one thing that kept you from finishing? If you can you nail it down to like one particular thing, or what is it?
Well, you have to be fast enough. So I mean, definitely like it would never hurt to have more mountain training and more mountain exposure. But my ultimate undoing was navigation. So I really struggled with a new section that went off the map, and there were like half a dozen new books, and amongst those, there were 3 that I really just struggled with, like visualizing how to hit it. And memorizing on the first loop, we were going pretty quickly, and I was trying to take mental notes, but it was just so much information coming at me at once. So the beginning third of the course, I feel like I know that pretty well, and the final 1/3 of the course, I know fairly well. Last year, I knew how to get to all of the books, although I may have some navigational issues that slow me down, but not crush me.
Can you be a little bit more specific when you say navigational issues?
Navigational issue is that last year I ended up coming down off a mountain, like probably off bearing by like 10 degrees, and it led me took about 40 minutes to correct the issue because I ended up really far north from where I was supposed to be.
You're navigating with a compass. Is that correct?
Yeah, a compass and a map. So, but to be honest with you, if I were to go back at it with full force, I would love to have like 8 or 10 orienteering races under my belt. I mean, Laz doesn't say it's like an orienteering race, but I mean, truthfully, there is a degree of like map like skills that you have to possess in order to navigate like efficient and fast. And while the lead runners aren't taking out their maps like frequently, they've really got an incredible sense of like where they're headed, when they're off course, what the best tangent is. All these things like matriculate into like time, and you can't afford it in this particular style race.
Matriculate? Did you just make that word up?
Oh, maybe, honey. Let's see.
Matriculate.
Yeah, that's right. You know what I was saying?
So let's say 3 things. Like this has been your 3rd year running. What are the 3 things that you would say have to be incorporated into your training a great deal? 3 things.
Climbing.
Climbing is one. Lots of climbing.
And descending.
Lots of descending.
Yeah.
Number 3?
Training in really incremental weather is usually ideal because like this year was really phenomenal.
Well, and navigating.
But
like navigating has to be in there.
There you go. So
well, that's 4. So you gotta narrow it down to 3.
That's really
what
3
are the 3?
Because the climbing and
descending
go together.
Okay. And then navigating, and then all different types of weather. Training in all different types of weather. Okay.
With your gear on.
With your gear on. All right.
That's
awesome.
it, honey.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining. And no, wait a minute. You have you have a race that's happening that you have not announced yet. And we don't have to announce it now.
Yeah.
But right?
It's coming.
It's coming. And we've not said one word to anybody about this race.
Yeah.
Because we weren't really sure if we could make it happen. Right?
I'm
so
psyched.
It's coming. We haven't decided if maybe we'll throw it up in a short like next week or something like that.
New country for me.
And it's going to be a new country for you.
That's right.
So be watching because it's that announcement coming.
That's right.
And maybe
we'll
to
interact with some schools there. So that's gonna be really cool. Too.
Really cool. So be watching for that announcement coming maybe this next week. Yeah, here in the next 10 days or so. All right.
Thank you for sharing everything about Barkley. But what's next for you?
So next is the Western States 100, and we have a couple smaller events. We have the Buck 50 in just a short while, then the Flying Pig Marathon, my 26th annual running of that, and then Western States 100, which will be my first time racing Western States. So it's a total transition from running off trail, steep, crazy stuff for Barkley to working in more speed, and now, still doing trails, but also focusing in some more road at different speeds. So we're excited for it.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
All right, honey. You get a little feisty, honey, with me.
No, it's just you, like.
What do you call that? The word for it.
Your pack.
I know my pack, honey.
Is that the word?
No, not the pack. The thing that goes inside of it.
The bladder?
The bladder, yes. I never use that word. I don't even use bladders that much. I only use it for like the Barkley Marathon, and a couple other races.
So do you think maybe?
Let's reset.
Do you think maybe using a bladder in training might actually help you?
No, honey, it's not that. It's something different. So let's go back to step 1. Go ahead and restart.